You wake up already sweating. Not because you moved, not because you panicked, just lying still, doing nothing. And your body is already overheating. The power has been out for 2 days. Tear inside. The house feels thick, heavy, trapped. You open a window and nothing changes. You turn on a fan and it only pushes warm air back into your face. By noon, the wall beside your bed feels warm when you touch it. That is the moment most people understand the danger too late. The problem is not just the heat. Outside. The problem is that your house is now storing heat and releasing it back into you hour after hour. This is where most people make the first deadly mistake. They try to cool the entire house. You do not. You save one room, one survivable space, one place where your body stops fighting the whole building at once. Everything changes when you stop thinking about comfort and start thinking about heat control. Because even in a blackout, you still have one advantage the sun cannot take from you. The ground beneath you. A few feet below the surface, the temperature is far more stable than the air above it. Not cold like air conditioning. Not magic. Just stable enough to take the edge off the heat that is building inside your home. That is the principle behind an old survival cooling idea. You route incoming air through cooler ground before it reaches you. But this is where people get hurt. By half understanding, the tube is not the system. Air control is the system. If you bury a pipe and blow air through it without thinking, you might get slightly cooler air. Or you might pull in moisture, mold, insects, foul air, and make the room more dangerous than the heat itself. So before you build anything, fix this rule in your mind. You are not cooling the house. You are deciding where heat is allowed to exist, and where it is not. Start with the room. Pick the smallest room you can isolate and live in 4 days. Not the biggest room, not the most comfortable room, the room with the least direct sun, the fewest leaks, and the smallest air volume. Walk through the house and check it like your life depends on it. Touch the walls that face the afternoon sun. Those rooms lose first. Look at which windows take direct light the longest. Stand in each doorway and feel the air. You want the room that stays darkest, warms slowest, and can be sealed without trapping you. If one room sits on the shaded side of the house and has only one small window, that room is your best candidate. Now reduce the space. Close the rest of the house off. Shut doors. Block gaps under them with dry towels, clothes, cardboard, anything that cuts air movement. Cover unused vents if you can. Hang blankets over open archways if needed. You are not trying to make the whole house livable. You are shrinking the amount of air your body has to survive. Inside. Next, block the sun. This comes before the ground system. Always. If sunlight is still entering the room, you are feeding the problem faster than you can control it. Stop sunlight from the outside, if possible. That matters more than blocking it inside, because once sunlight passes through the glass, the room starts storing that heat. Use tarps, cardboard, boards, emergency blankets, fabric, anything that cuts direct solar gain, then add interior layers, if needed. Also, think vertically. Heat collects high. If you have a lower room, use it. If one room sits above a cool basement or against shaded ground, that helps. If you must choose between a room upstairs and a room downstairs, the downstairs room usually gives you a better chance. Then build airflow. Not random airflow. Directed airflow. Air must enter from one point and leave from another. If air comes in and has nowhere to go, it stalls, and stagnant hot air will wear you down even faster than people expect. So you need a low intake and a higher exit. Hot air, risen, that is your engine. Pull air in from the coolest source you can control. Let hot air leave from the highest practical point, a higher window, a vent, even a gap near the top of a doorway. The goal is not speed. The goal is continuous movement. Even slow airflow helps if it is moving in the right direction. This is where the ground path matters. Instead of pulling outside air straight into the room, at peak temperature, you route it through cooler soil first. A buried pipe, hose, duct, or even a temporary shaded underground run can lower the temperature enough to matter. Not enough to feel luxurious, enough to keep your body from absorbing the worst of the heat. That is the difference that counts. If you can dig, bury the intake line in shaded ground. If you cannot dig deep, shallow burial in permanent shade is still better than leaving the line exposed in the sun. If the intake pipe heats up outside, you lose the advantage before the air even reaches you. Shade is not optional, it is part of the system, and the intake opening matters just as much as the line itself. Do not place it over hot pavement. Do not place it beside trash. Do not place it near standing water, animal waste, or anything that smells wrong. The air you pull in becomes the air you breathe. Treat the intake like the lungs of the room. Now, think like a mechanic. A shorter line is easier for air to move through. A longer line gives more time for heat exchange. A wider line moves air easier than a narrow one. A smooth interior is better than a rough one. And the whole line should drain, not trap water. You are balancing three things at once: cooling, air resistance, safety. And remember this, the underground pipe is only one version of the principle. The real principle is to help the incoming air before it reaches your body, then move it through one small controlled space that gives you alternatives. No yard to dig in. Use the coolest shaded side of the structure and route air through the coolest interior zone you have, like a basement edge or shaded storage area. Apartment with no digging. Then you use the same logic in another form. Pick the darkest room. Block, solar gain, hard. Pull air from the coolest side of the building during the coolest hours. Exhaust from the warmer side or highest point. Make the controlled space smaller if you need to. Hard ground and no time. Bury what you can in shade. Insulate the exposed sections and focus on airflow discipline instead of chasing perfect cooling. This is where people go wrong. They chase cold air. You are chasing survivable air. That means layered control. Less sunlight, smaller room, better airflow, better intake path, less radiant heat, less body strain. Then manage your own heat load. Stay low, move less, work in short bursts, rest during peak heat. Keep bedding light. Avoid heat-soaked surfaces if they are holding warmth. Drink early, not late, and watch the dog. The dog will often tell you before you admit the room is failing. Faster, panting, restlessness, constant searching for tile, concrete, shadow, or airflow. If the dog cannot settle, your space is not stable. Yet, the animal is not background. It is part of your warning system. And now comes the part that decides whether this setup helps you or poisons you. Moisture? This is where most people get it wrong. They think colder is always better, so they push the system too far. Longer pipe, deeper. Trench, more ceiling. Less fresh air. And then they ignore the real threat. Condensation. When hot air moves through a cooler underground path, water can collect inside the line. That water does not just sit there harmlessly, it becomes a breeding ground. Mold, bacteria, dirty air. If you pull that into a sealed survival room, you have traded heat stress for illness, so moisture control starts immediately. The line must never hold standing water. Give it a slight slope so condensation can drain. Do not let flexible tubing sag into low pockets. Support the line so it does not create hidden traps. Screen the intake against insects and debris. But do not choke airflow with a dirty, wet filter that never dries. And never place the intake near contamination, not near standing water, not near waste, not near garbage, not near fuel fumes, not near chemical storage, not near a crawl space. That smells bad. Whatever is outside that intake is coming into your breathing space. This is not just ventilation. It is life support. There is another mistake people make. They focus on the intake and forget the exit. If hot air cannot leave, your system weakens. Airflow slows. The room becomes stagnant again. So your exit point matters just as much as your intake point. Pull in low, release high. Keep the direction clear. That is what makes the room work. Then there is another mistake. People keep opening the room. Every time you open the door during peak heat, you dump your controlled air and refill the space with stored heat from the rest of the house. So once the room is set, treat it that way. Bring in what you need. Water, light, bedding, first aid, dog supplies. Then stop moving in and out. Unless you have to. Another mistake is forcing one method to do everything. This system works best in dry climates, where the air and the ground temperature difference can actually help you. In humid climates, the effect is weaker. The air already holds more moisture. Cooling potential drops. Moisture risk rises. That does not make the method useless. It means the method cannot work alone. In humid weather, you need even more discipline with shade, airflow, reduced activity, and smaller controlled space. You should also use cooler night hours aggressively. Flush out stored heat when outside air finally improves. Then close the house again before the next day loads. Heat pack in. That is the rule. Layer methods. Block sunlight first. Shrink the room second. Create directed airflow third. Improve the intake path fourth. Manage body heat inside the room last. Never reverse that order. Because if the room keeps collecting solar heat, no buried line is going to save you. Now say it clearly. T's system does not create cold air. It creates survivable air. That is a noog. Your goal is not comfort. Your goal is to prevent heat exhaustion, confusion, dehydration, and the slow mental collapse that makes every next decision worse. That is how heat kills, not always all at once. Often by making you weaker, slower, more confused, more careless, and less able to solve the next problem in time. A survivable room protects more than the body. It protects judgment. And judgment is what keeps you alive after the first problem is under control. Because once your head stays clear, you ration better. You move less. You hydrate earlier. You notice symptoms sooner. You stop wasting energy fighting the whole house. Now, here are your practical backups. If the full underground version is not possible. If you have a basement, use the coolest clean side of it as part of your intake path, but only if the air is dry enough and not moldy. If you have a crawl space, be careful. Cool does not automatically mean safe. If all you have are windows, then use the coolest hours to flush the house, then shut it down before daytime heat builds. If you have reflective material, use it to cut solar gain before the room stores that heat. If you have limited battery power, spend it on controlled airflow during the worst hours, not on trying to make the whole structure comfortable. And if you have almost nothing, you can still improve survival by choosing the right room, blocking sunlight, reducing activity, staying low, and keeping air moving in one direction, that is to core. Lesson. The system is not the pipe. The system is control. Now watch for warning signs. Headache, nausea, fast, pulse. Dizziness, confusion. Heavy sweating, followed by less sweating, hot skin, poor coordination. And watch the dog too. Harder panting, drooling, inability to settle, relentless searching for cooler surfaces. When those signs appear, do not lie to yourself about how well the room is working. Adjust immediately. More shade. Better airflow, less movement, earlier drinking, cooler intake, faster reassessment. Pride kill in heat. One more deadly mistake. People set the room once and stop checking it. But the house keeps changing. Shade moves, walls load heat, The intake side that worked in the morning may be worse by midday. So reassess the space. Touch surfaces. Feel airflow. Smell the line. Watch the animal. Check the room again and again. Survival is not one smart decision. It is constant correction. So what have you actually built? Not a cooling system. A controlled pocket of life inside a hostile structure. A room where sunlight is blocked, hot air can leave, incoming air is improved before it reaches you, and your body no longer has to fight the whole house at once. That is the difference between enduring heat and being broken by it. So remember the order. Save one room, block the sun, shrink the space. Pull air from the best source. You can control. Exhaust high. Keep the line shaded. Drain moisture. Avoid contamination. Stay low. Move less. Constantly. That is your recap. And understand what this really gives. You. Not comfort. Time to think. Time to recover. Time to make the next decision before your body starts failing. Because once the room stops cooking you, another threat moves forward. Water, not comfort. Water. Survival water. Airflow does not replace what sweat is taking out of you. It does not refill empty containers. It does not make bad water safe. It does not stop dehydration from becoming the next collapse point. So, now the question changes. Not how to cool the whole house. Not even how to cool one room. How long? Your body stays functional when water starts running out. The heat keeps pulling it out of you, and every mistake becomes more expensive. That is the next problem. And if you do not solve it in time, nothing you built here will matter.